Hi, everybody. I want to tell you about the new series that we're going to start this weekend at Saddleback Church. Unlike any series I've ever done in 36 years, I'm very excited about it. We're going to study the great prophet of the Old Testament named Daniel. There's a book named after him. And let me give you a little bit of background, but first let me tell you what the theme is. The theme of the series is called Unshakable. And it's how to not just survive, but how to thrive no matter what they throw at you. No matter what life throws at you, how do you actually thrive in a competitive and even in a hostile environment? If you've ever felt like you were a minority because of your faith, this will help you out. If you've ever felt like the odds were stacked against you because of circumstances in your life, this series will help you out. If you would like to know how to get promoted and how to actually succeed in a culture that doesn't share your values, this will help you out. Let me give you a little background. About 2,500 years ago, Daniel was a teenager living in his hometown of Jerusalem in Israel, and the country was overrun by terrorists. And an enemy nation took over the nation of Israel, and not only did that, it deported all of these people as refugees back to Iraq. And in Iraq, King Nebuchadnezzar was the king of the greatest empire at that time. And so Daniel, at 15 years of age, is separated from his family, separated from his culture, separated from everything he holds dear, and thrown into a culture that totally disagrees with everything he's been brought up to believe. The book of Daniel then covers the next 70 years of his life. He never does get to return home. He dies in a foreign country at 85 years of age. But he goes from being a poor teenage boy to being second in command in the entire empire over the next 70 years. In fact, he gets promoted 6 different times in his lifetime in a culture that's totally anti-God, anti-Christian or anti-Jew in that case. And it's an amazing story of how to succeed in a world that's hostile. There are principles here you need to know. You know that our culture is getting more and more hostile to believers. It's becoming more and more unpopular to stand for Christian truths. And yet Daniel was not only able to live a life of integrity, he actually survived 3 different administrations. Nebuchadnezzar, who was the number one ruler in the world, he served under him. Then Belshazzar, who took his place, a grandson, and served under him. And then when that empire was overthrown by the Persian Empire, Cyrus of the Persian, he served under Cyrus. And each time he was so promoted that he became second in command, the second most powerful man in the empire. I really want to encourage you to bring your children, your older children and your students to this series, because there's a lot of it that's going to make a lot of sense to them too. We're going to talk about such things as resilience. What do you do when your world is turned upside down? Your world may have been turned upside down recently, or you may be going into it in the future. We're going to talk about integrity. What do you do when what you believe is unpopular around you? How do you handle that? How do you handle peer pressure? We'll talk about that. How do you handle change that you don't want in your society? We're going to talk about, this is one of the things we'll cover for students, and that is when your teachers demean and dismiss what you believe. How do you handle growing up as a strong Christian in a non-Christian educational system? Daniel teaches us how to do that. We're going to talk about what do you do when your employer asks you to do the impossible? Daniel was asked to do the impossible. There was physically, mentally, spiritually impossible for what he did, and yet he survived, he thrived, and he got promoted as a result. When you're given an impossible assignment. We're going to talk about what to do when the heat's on in your life, when you're feeling persecuted, when you're feeling harassed as a believer. We're going to talk about what to do when telling the truth could hurt you. And you're asked to tell the truth at work, and it could hurt your career. It could be a career-ending move. What do you do in that situation? And how do you do that? Daniel told the truth and got promoted. You got to do it the way he did it. We're going to talk about at the last part of his life, when he's called out of retirement, when he's taken off the bench and put back into action. What do you do when you're called back into action? And how do you handle that? And we're even going to talk about what do you do when you're forced to break a bad law? And there are some bad laws now in the world out there. So this is going to be an intensely practical way of how to survive and how to thrive in a hostile culture. I don't want you to miss it. It's going to be good for the whole family, from young ones to people who are retired and everybody in between. I hope you'll see it this weekend at your campus. By the way, if you missed either of the messages I did last week, you can catch those online. I did a very important message on racism and how do you get prejudice out of your life. It was called God's Grace is for Every Race. You can watch that online. And if you missed SALT, there's an important message there about how do you break through the plateaus in your life. You'll have plateaus in your relationships. You'll have plateaus in your marriage. You'll have plateaus in your spiritual growth. You'll have plateaus in your career. All of these things. We talked about that at SALT. It's always very, very practical. And if you missed either of those messages, make sure you watch those online this week. But we'll see you this weekend when we cover and begin the new series, Unshakable, how to survive and how to thrive no matter what they throw at you. See you then.